Good morning, my friends. How are you? Welcome to another edition of Behind the Mic with me, Mike Avery, here in the Outdoor Magazine radio studio, here to record this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, and glad to have you along with us on the first official day of summertime. Happy summertime to you. Looks like it's going to be another warm one with, again, northeast winds. Hey, Craig, how are you? I hope to see you Friday morning. Hope I haven't checked the forecast today, but last I saw, it looked like we're going to have a window of opportunity Friday morning. I did have to cancel my Wednesday night live with Brad Dupuis tonight out on Saginaw Bay because of the northeast blow, but I will go live Wednesday night live from the Angler Quest tonight at my dock, walking you through the new Angler Quest. Good morning, Ruben. How are you? How are things in Colorado? Cliff, always a pleasure. How are you, buddy? Thanks for joining me on this edition of Behind the Mic here from the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. I will tell you who's on the show coming up here. Hey, Davina, good morning. How are you? Brad, nice to have you along with us as always. As we kind of get things fired up, the audience is a little, there we go. We're starting to get some numbers here. Usually get some pretty good numbers. Liam, good morning. How are you? Checking in over on YouTube. Appreciate that. We usually get some pretty good morning. And Martin over on Facebook as well. That's good to see. Hello, Johnny Bowler, the Bear Whisperer. Johnny, we will find out next Monday who got their Michigan Bear tags, and your phone's going to be ringing off the hook. Gene, appreciate you joining us. Johnny has been getting some big brookies up on a UP stream. I won't tell you which one. I don't want to give away his honey hole, but he sent me some pictures over the weekend of a float trip they did. So he's not only the bear whisperer, he's the brook trout whisperer as well. Johnny, always a pleasure. Johnny's coming down to fish with me in July, along with Ross Elliott, out on Saginaw Bay on the new Angler Quest. I've been out there a couple of times since we've last talked. I hope to fish Friday morning. Hey, Cap, how are you? Captain Mark Pananzak. If you're looking for a walleye fishing trip on Saginaw Bay or the Detroit River, though it's not the time to be fishing the Detroit River right now, Captain Mark Pananzak can help you out. He fishes out of the Linwood Beach Marina. What is it, Mark? Real Fishing? Realfishing.com. Mark is one of the best out there. He knows Saginaw Bay inside and out. He grew up on Saginaw Bay, literally on the shore of Saginaw Bay, and has spent much of his life out there on the water of Saginaw Bay. Hey, Cap, what do you think of these northeast winds? Time for them to stop, huh? Although the one good thing about northeast winds is the fact that it blows cold water in. Looking at our numbers this morning, and I'm surprised that we don't have more people. Hey, Tim, good morning. How are you? Always a pleasure, Tim. Congrats on your first coyote, by the way. Pretty cool stuff. Taking the kid that bid the highest on Brent James' wife's benefit. I'll send pictures. Excellent, Johnny. That was very generous of you, Johnny. Appreciate that. Craig says, saw Lance at the MWT in Au Gres last Saturday, and someone ran over two of his boards that morning. Hello, Ed. Still can't reach us on Facebook. Got to come through YouTube. Ed Bolanowski, Johnny, Ed will be calling you next week to set up his late season hunt. I won't, because I didn't put in for only points this year. Mad Jack also over on YouTube. Got a lot of YouTubers this morning. Oh, Mark's in the hospital with a heart issue, not missing the northeast winds. Mark, I'm sorry to hear that. Don't know what's going on. Not going to ask. It's none of my business, but our prayers with you. And good luck. John Sullivan over at Lure Lipstick says, get well, Mark. John Sullivan, Lure Lipstick, lurelipstick.com, a great family-owned Michigan company. You know I love that. How you doing this morning, John? Saw a picture of you the other day. You're looking good. Looking good. Glad to see that. Little bit of a programming note, too. Hey, Ross. How you doing, brother? Nice to have you along with it. Johnny's here this morning, too, Ross. Are you in for a bear tag this fall? Did you put in for points? Who you hunting with? Good to hear, John. Anyway, we will know on the 26th. In fact, I will make a note here. Bear and is it elk tags too, guys? Help me out. I know we find out about the bear tags on the 26th. What about the elk tags? Bear tags Monday. Jeff says, get well, Cap. Let me check my calendar here. Monday's got to be the 26th. Yeah, okay. What about elk tags, guys? Do we find out about the elk tags too? Bill Hoffman's here, Michigan's most interesting man. Just points from me, but I started buying my kids points years ago. Hey, Rachel, how are you? Angie had a wonderful fishing trip with Gus. That was so much fun. So much fun. Tracy says, feel better, Cap. John put in for points, should have 8 points. Hey, Dave, good morning. How are you, buddy? You will get an elk tag from your lips to God's ears. I hope you do get an elk tag. Is that Monday as well, Ross? Did we find out about those Monday too? Dave, I don't know if I said good morning. How are you doing? Anyway, I was going to do a Wednesday night live. It is Monday. Thank you, Ross. I was going to, hey, Chris, how are things in Kansas? Waiting on his grandbaby. How cool is that, Chris? Congrats. Hope everything goes well. I'm sure everything will go well. And congrats. Is that your first grandbaby? Or the first of many? I was supposed to do a Wednesday night live tonight on Saginaw Bay with Mr. Angler Quest himself, Brad Dupuis, and Bob Ransom of Primal Outdoors. We pulled the plug on it because it's supposed to be northeast winds again tonight. Good morning, Bert. Good morning, Captain Shane. How are you? This will make 13. You're an old pro at it by now. Josh Mapes. Coyote Killing King Mapes. How you doing, Josh? Josh is an interesting guy. Follow him over at Overdrive Outdoors. You also follow him personally. He has an interesting story to tell. Ross says, the bear hunt I won at your wild game dinner is getting donated to a veteran to hunt with Johnny Bowler. God bless you, Ross, and Johnny as well. Nice job, guys. Ross, you're coming down to fish with me, and Johnny's coming down on the 8th. Saturday, July 8th, you guys are coming down. I'm looking forward to that. Fishing's pretty good right now. It should be good well past the 8th with these northeast winds blowing in cold water. That's one advantage of the northeast winds. Anyway, I was supposed to fish tonight. We pulled the plug on that. Uncle Johnny, how you doing, buddy? Where you are? There you go, Uncle Johnny. Emil Russo's coming down of a company that I will no longer mention. Justin, I am doing great. How are you? There, the fan just kicked back on. Excellent. I shouldn't say I will no longer mention. I will not be mentioning it for a while. Bring crawlers. That's fine, Johnny. Bring them. We won't fish them, but you can bring them. Throw them in the cooler. Put them on ice. Yep. Just as Emil had predicted. Friday still looking good? Excellent. Okay, so what I'm going to do tonight, since we can't fish on Wednesday Night Live, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a Wednesday Night Live from my Angler Quest at the dock. Hey, I love to see this. Chris Gilbert, first time. Where'd we go, Chris? First time listener. So happy to found you, Mike. Love to hear about Outdoors of Michigan. Grew up watching Morton F with my dad. Chris, welcome. Glad to have you along with us. Chris, I would encourage you to also check out the radio show, check out the podcast version of the show, check out the podcast I do with some of my advertising partners. And Wednesday Night Live. Every Wednesday night at 7:00, I go live on my social media outlets, and we try to do something fun there as well. David, good morning. How are you? Brandon says Lake St. Clair is hot. Smallmouth, 10 to 12 feet of water. Walleye, Stony Point, 14 feet of water. Bandits, 40 back. Muskie, Stony Point, 16 feet of water on bucktails. Right there is your Lake St. Clair fishing report, courtesy of Brandon Pickens. Johnny won't be. Lure Lipstick said the flicker shad bite is hot, as well as, well, we're talking St. Clair. Saginaw Bay, the flicker shad and the flicker minnows, and the spoon bite is taken off. Jason checking in from the Ford Dearborn truck plant. John Sullivan of Lure Lipstick, lurelipstick.com says, welcome, Chris. Hey, Sean, good morning. Sean, a fellow Angler Quest owner. Sean's veteran got the biggest Fish of the Walleye for Warriors event. Congrats on that, Saginaw Bay. Yes. Chad Bailey. Chad's repping Bear Archery. Great archery company with a lot of history. Bear Archery and more, right, Chad? Eli says, congrats on the bear. That brings up a good topic I want to follow up on, and I will talk more about this on the radio show. Unfortunately, many of my radio affiliates aired the wrong show last week. They repeated a show from the previous week. When that happens, and it's happened a few times, it makes me absolutely sick. Because I produce a new show every week. I have for more than 35 years. I don't think I've ever missed a week. Even when my dad died, I didn't miss a show. I take this very seriously. I would never abandon my listeners and just repeat a show. I wouldn't do it. I would not do it. Unfortunately, sometimes technical issues come along that are beyond my control. And that's what happened last week. And as a result, a lot of people didn't get to hear the story of my Ontario bear hunt, which is very, very unfortunate. Again, if you hear a show repeated on the Outdoor Magazine radio network, it's not because I didn't do my job. I would not do that to you. But because there are several moving pieces to this syndication, to this distribution, and because technology and other factors sometimes get involved, mistakes can be made, and everybody makes mistakes. Sometimes those mistakes are beyond our control. Sometimes they happen because they're mistakes. I apologize if you didn't hear a new show last week. It wasn't my doing. Tim says, and if it happens, he goes to listen to the podcast. And that was going to be my advice. Good morning, Mike. How are things at Michigan Outdoorsman? Arlen, I'm doing great this morning. How are you? But it hurts me deeply in here when those things happen, because I go out of my way. Oh, man. Chad says his bear hunt in Quebec just got canceled because of the fires. Maybe next year. Was supposed to leave this Friday, maybe next year. That's 2 bear hunts canceled in 2 years. That stinks. Chad, I don't know if you heard the story, but my Ontario hunt was canceled and rescheduled. I got to do it anyway. Andrew says, good morning, Mike. What's for breakfast? How did you know that I had something in here for breakfast? Michigan brand meats. Garlic smoked beef. Breakfast of champions. Morning, Bruce. Good morning, Ross. Yeah, it does stink. And I honestly, and I sent off a scathing email and was informed about some issues I wasn't aware of. Again, I will not repeat a show. Well, I've never repeated a show. I shouldn't say I will not. Who knows? I mean, there could be something that comes up at the last minute I can't get into the studio. But for more than 35 years, that hasn't happened on my end. But things happen. Okay, what else is on the list here? Hey, Kevin, good morning. How are you? Steve says, I wonder how the wildfires directly affect the life of a bear. I think they run. Haven't you? What was the? Wasn't there a? Was it Bambi? What was the Disney movie where there's a fire and it forced them all out of the forest? I think that was it. Bambi. It does, Ross. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. Appreciate your content as well. You're doing a great job. Um, I had a very, very cool experience Monday. I fished with a good friend of mine, Gus Voida, of Pizza Sam's in Midland, by the way. And the director of the fisheries department of the Michigan DNR. How cool is that to be able to spend the day on the water walleye fishing on Saginaw Bay with the fisheries director of the DNR of the state of Michigan? And that was very cool. Randy Claremont. Really enjoyed that. And we caught fish too. ML, good morning. How are you? Hey, Cap, nice to have you along with us. Johnny says they either get out of the way or they burn up. One of the things Randy asked me, I appreciate that, Chad, very much. I honestly do. One of the things that Randy asked me, he said, Mike, he said, you've been fishing this bay for a long time. He said, what's your most memorable fishing trip on Saginaw Bay? And I got thinking about it. And I gave him an answer that day. I'm actually going to use that for this week's Ask Avery question at the end of hour number 2. And I'm going to tell you about my 3 most memorable fishing trips on Saginaw Bay. Hello, Charlie. Oh, good morning. Looks like I need some sunscreen on my nose. What the hell? That's what Scott says. I don't care. I'm burn up. I don't care. Good morning, Terry. How are you? I just had a guy named Scott. He says, it looks like you need some sunscreen on the nose. What about the top of my head? What about my rear end? I'm so damn glad to be sunburned. Can you stop those northeast winds, by the way, Terry Henney? I mean, but if we didn't have them, we'd be roasted. No rain. And the other thing is, for us fishermen, it's pushing cool water into the inner bay and keeping the fish in the inner bay longer. That's the only good thing I can think of. That and keeping us from burning up. Yeah. Yesterday was probably the most intense sun we've had in weeks because we haven't had the Canadian smoke. Upper. Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't hazy from the smoke. Yeah, good point. Because yesterday I was out at Bullcat. The farm people had their big educational trust. By the way, folks, I'm talking to Terry Henney here from WSGW. If you're wondering who I'm talking to. Sorry. No, that's all right. Terry knows more about weather than Mark Torregrossa does. And there were a lot of guys that got burned yesterday because they've been out in the sun, but they've never worried about it because there's been that haze. I was sitting at my granddaughter's softball game Sunday, and it was kind of the same way. It's like, wow, how did that happen? Yeah. Anyway, Terry, I got to go back to work. Okay, so where are we at here? All right, Ross, have a good day, buddy. Steve says, I wonder how far the run and how it would change their home range. I also wonder what they're thinking. That's for another radio show. Was that his first trip on the bay? Not at all, Sean. No. It was just his first trip. Well, actually, he grew up in the area. He's a Frankenmuth guy, so he spent a lot of time on the bay. Who's your Johnny checking in? Been a while. Glad to be aboard. I'm glad to have you, Johnny. Favorite all-time outdoor memory? That's topic for another day too. John Sullivan of Lure Lipstick said it keeps the flies down as well. Very good point. You get a day out there this time of year when you don't have wind, you're going to get flies. John says, how are you liking the new Angler Quest? Does it seem any bigger or better than your old one? I love it. It's the same size as my old one. It's an 85-26 Pro Troll, so it's 26 feet long and 8.5 feet wide. Interesting. My slip is 10 feet wide and my boat is 8.5 feet wide. So I have 9 inches of clearance on both sides of my boat, which in a big wind can make it interesting. Johnny says he'll be down here Saturday for the Polish Festival. Is that St. Stan's, Johnny? Is that St. Stan's? As far as better than the old one, I think all these angler quests are beautiful. They are fishing machines, absolute fishing machines. And John, to answer your question, you may not have been here earlier. Since I had to cancel my Wednesday night live tonight with Brad Dupuis, Mr. Angler Quest, and Bob Ransom of Primal Outdoors, I'm going to do a Wednesday night live tonight from the dock, and I will start putting sunscreen on my nose. Well, I did the other day, but it didn't help. And the top of my head. I'm going to do a Wednesday night live tonight at 7 o'clock on my social media outlets from my Angler Quest, sitting at the dock to walk you through the Angler Quest. Johnny said, yep, St. Stan's. Chad says a fishing or hunting trip based only on trophies taken falls far short of what the ultimate goal should be. Great Fred Bear quote, my best fishing memories, not the days we slammed them. Exactly. All right, Chris, good luck to you. Captain Shane says his boat is 11.5 wide and his slip is 12 wide. 3 inches on each side. Hey, Cap. Yeah, makes it interesting. Oh, Charlie, did you get the new reader spot? Excellent. Thank you. Oh, 50 seconds. What channel on the radio are you on, Mike? Arlen, I'm on 33 radio stations across the state of Michigan, and the podcast version of the show is available anywhere. I mean, anywhere you get your podcast. Cap says he'll be looking for a used Angler Quest. I'm going to have one. Steve, looking for a slip in Sunset Shores. That's where I'm at, Steve, and there are slips available, and it is a great place to be. I love it in there. That's what rub rails are for. All right, I can't be answering your questions anymore because I got to start the radio show in 10 seconds. So in 10 seconds, I'm going to quit talking to you directly. I will put my official broadcast headphones on and record this week's show. Now, I'm going to talk about a lot of the same things. Blast off. Sorry, I didn't have countdown. Blast off. So, Michigan brand, guys. One of the perks of doing this show. So, I'll be back on tonight at 7. I'll be on the water hopefully Friday if there's a window of opportunity when I can get out there when the wind quits blowing. And I hope you can join me tonight, 7 o'clock, for another edition of Wednesday Night Live. Have a good day, my friends. And again, if you hear me talking about some of these same topics, I'm switching from this microphone to this microphone. Different audience. Mike Avery. Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. And so glad to have you along with us as we are now officially in summer. It is summertime, not just because Mother Nature says it's summertime, but it's also summer because the calendar says it's summer. We've kind of known that for a while now, haven't we? It has been an interesting summer so far, summer season, weather-wise. Mother Nature is just, you can't see it, but I'm shaking my head. She can be wicked. We're still in a drought, pretty bad drought. I mean, some areas have seen some rain, but not enough to make up for drought conditions. And a lot of northeast winds, which the northeast winds have kept it a little cooler. That's, good because the fields and lawns would be drying up completely if we didn't have a little bit of a cool northeast breeze. But it sure makes it hard to get out on my beloved Saginaw Bay walleye fishing. Only good thing about a northeast wind, consistent northeast wind, is it does push some cooler water from the outer bay into the inner bay and hopefully keep those fish in close to shore, in tight for longer later in the season. But more on that coming up. I also have to do a little bit of a programming note here, and it, I'm just honestly I'm sick about this. Many of our stations aired the wrong show last week, and it was no fault of theirs at all. I would not do that to you as a listener. I would not repeat a show. I take this too seriously. I value your time too much to waste your time by playing the same show 2 weeks in a row. I've been doing this more than 30 years, and I have never missed a show. This is my job. It's a fun job. It's the best job in the world, but this is my job, and I take it very seriously. I take your loyalty and your time very seriously, and I would not waste your time by repeating a show. However, sometimes things happen. Sometimes, and I did make a new show for last week, rest assured. And some of our stations heard it, but many of you did not. Because there are a lot of moving parts in getting this show to you, that sometimes technical glitches happen that are beyond anybody's control. You know, things happen. I get that. Things happen. And because things happened last week that really were beyond the control of anybody, a lot of you didn't get to hear last week's show. And I apologize for that. Honestly, it hurts me. So I will just say very briefly, because I've had a lot of people ask. Last week, I was telling a story about my Ontario bear hunt. And I won't go into detail because I won't bore you. But yes, I did get my Ontario bear. After 4 days in the bush, 4 days of sitting in a blind and enjoying every minute of it, the last 2 hours of the last night of the hunt, a bear did come in, and I took him, and he's now being made into brats by my friends at Michigan Brand Meats. So again, if you heard a repeat show last week, I apologize. It was nobody's fault. I did make a new show, but things happen. Here's the word of advice on this. If you hear a repeat radio show, that's the week you want to listen to the podcast version of the show, because I have direct control on the upload of the podcast. So if you hear the radio show being a repeat, and it doesn't happen very often, but sometimes technical glitches happen, go to the podcast version of the show. Okay. So when I got back from my bear hunt, I told you I was going to start fishing. And I have been, and man, have I been having fun. It is so good to get back out on Saginaw Bay. I got a late start. So good to get out there on the new angler quest and chase those Saginaw Bay walleyes. I have a relationship with that fishery that goes back a long, long time. I was thinking about this the other day. I think one of the reasons I'm fascinated by this fishery, a couple of reasons. Number one, it's in my backyard. And number two, I've been watching this fishery develop, and I have been covering this fishery way back to my days of television news on the reintroduction of the walleye and the resurgence of the fishery. And I just love it. And I had a chance to fish with the new chief of the fisheries division of the Michigan DNR. That was a very, very interesting trip. In fact, Randy Claremont is going to join us here. I think he's going to join us in the next segment after the break. But it was so much fun to pick his brain and to listen to his thoughts on this fishery. He's in charge of all the fisheries now in the state of Michigan. I found that to be very, very interesting. Fishing has been good on Saginaw Bay. Yes, in my beloved skinny water. And no, I'm not running crawlers because I don't need to. I have nothing against night crawlers. My perfect day would be to fish 10 feet of water with number 7 flicker shads or flicker minnows, or maybe even sneak in a good old-fashioned Hottentot, running those baits from 20 to 50 feet behind the boards. It is so cool to be fishing so shallow that you can bring your boards up, your offshore boards, and net a fish while it's still hooked to the board. Then you know you're fishing skinny. Then you know you're fishing tight. I just love it. I love it. And you would think that after this many years of being out there that I would be a better angler that I am. And I admit that I get outfished a lot of days, but I catch my share, and nobody has more fun fishing than I do. You know why? One of the reasons is I don't take it very serious. I go out there to have fun. I go out there to enjoy the day. I go out there to enjoy the experience. I go out there to enjoy the friendship and the camaraderie of the people that I'm fishing with. And if we get fish, that's just a bonus. I've fished with people in the past where if you lose a fish at the net, it's a big deal and they get all mad and upset. Not on my boat. I don't care. It's just a bonus. Wednesday Night Live. Now, those of you who have been around for a while know about Wednesday Night Live. There are 2 scheduled live streams that I do every week. One of them is Wednesday mornings at 8:45 live from the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. The other one, and that's called Behind the Mic because I'm sitting behind the microphones. I could call it Mike Behind the Mic. And the other one is Wednesday Night Live. That's Wednesday night at 7:00. And these are live streams on my social media outlets. Now, last week, I was supposed to do one with Brad Dupuis, Mr. Angler Quest, and Bob Ransom of Primal Outdoors. We wanted to get out on Saginaw Bay and fish walleye and do a Wednesday night live there. But Mother Nature and her northeast winds, again, did not allow it. So I did a live stream from my Angler Quest sitting at the boat. Next week, it looks like we're going to have somebody from the Michigan Wildlife Council on Wednesday Night Live. And then looking 2 weeks down the road, a week and a half down the road, Wednesday night, July 5th, if Mother Nature will allow, if these northeast winds will slow down a little bit, I am going to be out there with Mr. Angler Quest, Brad Dupuis. Bob Ransom of Primal can't make that trip, but we're going to be joined by Nick DeShano of Offshore Tackle. How cool is that? Talking about cool experiences, fishing with the chief of the fisheries department of the Michigan DNR, and then also fishing with Brad Dupuis, Mr. Angler Quest, Nick DeShano of the DeShano family of Offshore Tackle. That's one of the greatest things about this job. It's allowed me to do some cool things, yes, but to get to meet some very interesting people. Coming up on this week's show after the break, Randy Claremont, the new fisheries director for the DNR, joins me. We'll talk about our fishing trip on Saginaw Bay and more. Then Tom Campbell of Woods and Water News. In our second hour, Captain John Littlefield of Littlefield Sport Fishing. He is a guy who taught my charter captain's class, and he's in the process of buying the company to teach more people about getting their charter captain's class. Then Nick Green of MUCC checks in. He had quite a weekend last week. Man, he was into the fish. We'll talk about that. This week's Ask Avery segment is a question that Fisheries Chief Randy Claremont asked me. He said, Mike, what are your most memorable fishing trips here on Saginaw Bay? And I had to think about it. Well, I have been thinking about it, and there are 3 trips specifically that stand out in my mind, and I'll tell you about those. And in our third hour, Richard P. Smith is not happy at all with the deer hunting regulation changes for the fall. He thinks there are a lot of politics involved, and I tend to go along with him on this one. We'll talk about that and more. And, of course, we'll wrap it all up with Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire, Dixie Dave Miner. That's coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Don't hesitate to reach out. Send me an email. Let me know what's on your mind. Let me know what you're thinking. Questions, comments, criticisms. Send me your Ask Avery questions, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. It's going to be a busy show, going to be a good show. So glad you're with us. That's all coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine.
Hey, Mr. Mike Avery, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Where would be the best place hunter
And so should
or
your hunting
some
rifle.
hunter
It's
safety?
time to take a look. That's like a $64,000 question. Best place right now is to do it online, I think. You got to do it online, and then you take your test in person somewhere. Yeah, they're They used to be everywhere. Every Boy Scout troop used to have them. Everybody used to have them. Oh, anyway, I gotta end my live broadcast here. Yes, yeah, I got sidetracked here, my friends. Have a good day.